Okay, hello everyone. My name is Shuhei Aida, and I'm the editor of King's Digital EOT and MA student at King's College London. In this video, we'll be talking about telecollaboration, with part focus on how it can be implemented in EOT classroom. To guide us through that, I am happy to invite our guest, Dr. Robert Oldad from the University of Leon, who is specialized in this topic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Before we jump into the topic, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe
Okay.
share a little bit about your research as well with
Okay.
us?
Okay. I come from Ireland originally, but I've lived in Germany and Spain for the
Right.
past 25, 26 years now, or even longer, working as a English as a foreign language specialist, so teaching English as a foreign language. And my area of research has been through all my career has been telecollaborative learning, okay, and virtual exchange which is which is all about bringing students from different countries into contact together and getting them to learn together online, and how to integrate that type of activity into our classes, into our foreign language classes, but also nowadays not only in foreign language education, but also
Mm.
in university education in general. Yeah, that's it. I did my thesis about this in 2000
Mm.
in the University of Duisburg-Essen in Germany. And then more recently, I've lived and worked at the University of León in Spain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So the first question will be, so you kind of covered this already in your introduction, but how do you define telecollaboration? Because it seems like there are similar terms like you mentioned, virtual exchange, COID,
Yeah.
e-tandem. If you can kind of differentiate between those terms and
Okay.
define
hmm
telecollaboration.
Well, if you like, there's like one global term, right? Like an umbrella term, which is
Mm.
virtual exchange, okay?
Okay.
Which is a way of describing all of the different ways that teachers are bringing together students from different countries online in online collaboration, intercultural collaboration together. But this can be done in many different ways, and it can be done with different objectives in mind. Okay. Telecollaboration is when we do this type of projects for foreign language education,
Mm.
specifically aimed at foreign language education, where you have students in different countries, maybe reading the same text together, doing projects together, and at the same time, by doing that, practicing their foreign languages and developing their intercultural competence. Okay, so that's basically what telecollaboration is.
Mm-hmm.
It's more or less virtual exchange, but applied to foreign language education.
Right, right. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, we can say the term we should be, as an English teacher, aware of is telecollaboration.
Yeah, there are many
Okay.
different terms, and I mean,
Mm.
in the United States, and people talk a lot about COIL, collaborative online
Right,
international
right,
learning. At the end of the day, it's not too important. I don't worry about too
right,
much what people call it. The important thing is that people are
right.
doing this type of activity, right?
Mm.
If people are more comfortable or more interested in using one term rather than the other, that's fine. What the only challenge can be is that sometimes people don't realize that they're talking about the same thing, or you know
Right.
what I mean. They can lead to
Yeah.
confusion. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, thank you so much. So it's just out of my curiosity, but what motivated you to kind of study this field?
Well, I was always very, very interested in the cultural side of foreign language learning, of
Right.
development of intercultural competence.
Mm.
I also, as a student, I studied French and German, and I got to do Erasmus. I got to study abroad twice during my degree, and I found that really a transforming experience for myself. And I suppose when I became a language teacher, I wanted other students to have this wonderful learning experience of engaging with people from other
Right.
cultures and from learning from them.
Mm.
And not everybody can get to go abroad, right? It's becoming more and more
Yes.
expensive, right? And more difficult to find accommodation if you want to go abroad. So at least when you offer students, telecollaborative learning as part of their courses, then you are giving them an international learning experience. It's not the same as living abroad in France for a year, but at
Mm.
the same time, it can be a challenge and a rich learning experience
Yeah.
for students.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I understand. Like, it doesn't really replace the experience of living abroad, but it kind of helps to,
Yeah,
it opens the access. It-
exactly. And
yeah,
it can motivate students. They very often students can do telecollaborative learning as part of their classes,
mm,
and that will encourage them, will motivate them to want to study abroad.
yeah,
Okay, and it can also prepare them for it. Okay, very often, if students live in, shall we say, monocultural societies where they don't come up against people from other cultures and other
yeah,
languages, this can be like a first experience of coming up against people from another way of seeing the world. And,
mm,
so this can prepare them for going abroad and hopefully motivate them to go abroad as well.
right. I come from Japan, and Japan is pretty much monocultural and monolingual, so I
Mm.
can agree with you more. Uh, okay, moving on to the next question. So it's kind of big question, but what are the main benefits of using telecollaboration in English language classroom? Uh, if you can name some major benefits, that would be great.
Okay. Well, first of all, I suppose the important thing is that your students, when they do these type of projects, are talking to real people, right? Very
Mm,
often, foreign language classes are limited to textbooks, using textbooks, or shall I say, text-based materials and things like that. Here, they are getting a real opportunity to use their foreign language with members of another culture,
mm,
and that is like a huge, I think, plus, right? This is
mm.
something that maybe 30 years ago wasn't possible, right?
Right, right.
And yet now, increasingly, the ability to put your students into contact with real people,
Mm,
um, you know, and in the case of English, they don't have to be necessarily English people or Irish people or Americans. They don't have to be native speakers as such. There are many, many people doing very interesting projects with English as a lingua franca. So maybe you'd have like Spanish and Polish and German students working together using English. Okay.
mm,
And that is also authentic because at the end of the day, especially when it comes to English, what you have is a language where people will use it in many, many, many contexts, but not with native speakers, okay, with other
mm,
foreign language speakers. So we're giving them experience in that. That's one benefit. Another benefit of this, I think, is that if you go abroad, for example, if a student goes abroad, you are throwing them in the deep end. You don't know what's going to happen to them, what
mm,
experiences they are going to have, and how they should be prepared for it. However, in telecollaboration, the teachers design beforehand what the students are going to do together. You give them tasks where they have to find out whatever, five things that their cultures have in common in relation to something, or you might ask them to read a text and compare their reactions to the text, whatever, something like that. But when teachers design these tasks, then they can prepare their students for these experiences, right?
mm,
Help them with the language, suggest to them how, if students are having text-based interactions, then the teacher can help the students to analyze the emails or the messages that they are getting from their partners. What do
mm,
they mean by this? Why did they say this? The important thing is to integrate it into your classes. So in that way, the teacher can provide support, saying why did your partner get angry with you?
mm,
Why did your partner say this? This type of kind of intercultural
mm,
facilitation is a great positive aspect of it as well, I think.
mm. Okay, so you mentioned that authenticity of the interaction kind of
Hmm.
motivates
Hmm.
students more and
Yeah,
also prepare them to kind of
yeah,
interact in the real world. The other thing you mentioned is that deep end approach, I think, but with decent scaffolding.
exactly. The
Okay,
scaffolding,
okay.
yeah, and the
Uh,
teacher providing support and
mm,
facilitation. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Mhm.
I understand. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So again, this is a big question, but if you can walk us through, what are the essential steps for an English teachers to start using their collaboration in their classroom? I have experience organizing virtual exchange, but I know that it takes time and effort. If you can walk us through, like, what are the essential steps for English teachers to start?
Well, I suppose the first thing that a teacher needs to do is know why they want to do it, right? To have a particular goal that they want their
Mm,
students to, skills or a
mm,
topic that they want their students to develop knowledge about.
mm,
The big challenge very often is finding a partner. right?
Right.
Finding a partner in another country, whether it's in in English speaking country or, like I said, somewhere where English is used as a lingua franca, and finding opportunities for there to get to find a partner can be challenging,
Mm,
and but once you have one, what you then need to do is invest time getting to know your partner teacher, because it's not simply sending one email to them each week and saying, okay, I want you to do this. No, this is a negotiated process.
mm,
Just like your students are going to have to engage in intercultural communication, so will you as a teacher with your partner teacher find a series of activities or tasks that work for both classes. And that can take
mm,
time, it can take negotiation, it can take
mm,
it can be a challenge. So that's that. And then once you have your partner, you need to come up with a series of tasks that your students will do together. Normally, they are broken down into three types, right? First of all, you get your students to know each other, so
mm,
they can have shall we say, they're not talking to robots, right? They're talking to human beings. So you want them to know, where they come from, what their lives are like, how they're going to get them to agree on how they're going to work
right.
together. Okay, basic stuff. Then very often there's like a comparative task where you get your students to look at one topic, how that is shall we say, dealt with or experienced in both cultures. Okay, it might be a social issue, right? Immigration, or I don't know, gender equality, or whatever you choose, that whatever the topic is that's of interest to you in your classes, right?
Mm,
Um, and you get your students maybe to do a survey in both countries where they compare their reactions to it, or you might get them to collect materials from both countries and then compare their reactions to it again. And then finally, the biggest one is the final task where they get to actually make something together. That might be a presentation, might be a short project or an essay or a video, but you get your students to collaborate, compromise, and to make something together that they can produce as a team, right?
mm,
And that can be very often the most challenging, but also the most enriching of the tasks. Okay, so finding a partner and developing good tasks, I think, are the
mm,
real, the big first steps to think about. Yeah.
mm. Uh, so finding partner to begin with is the most difficult part of the collaboration, I feel like. Is there any advice on that?
Well, I suppose if
Mm,
you are, depending if you're a secondary school or high school teacher, there are networks in Europe like e-twinning where you can find
right, right.
partners.
Mm,
If you're at university level, very often teachers will look for colleagues that they have met in conferences or that they know from
mm,
their networks,
mm,
There's also organizations like Collaboration that help, have partner fairs where people can log on and meet together and get to know each other.
mm,
But my experience is that it's good, if possible, that you already know the person in some way, that it's somebody that you've met before, you've worked with before in some other way,
mm,
that you already have a good working relationship. But
right,
if that's
right.
not possible, then there are lots of people looking for partners nowadays. There really are.
Mm,
So it's yeah, it's doable. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, not knowing the person beforehand is kind of essential. I think it takes time and
Hmm.
collaboration, so that
Mm.
really makes sense. Uh, okay, so again, it's kind of overlapping, but so my next question will be, so when it comes to designing the task in collaboration, is there any specific aspect that sh teachers should be like careful or really affect to
Well,
pedagogical value?
yeah. I suppose the important thing is that the tasks that you develop are of interest and of relevance to both groups of students.
Mm,
Okay, that that it's going to be a topic that will be of interest, and the students are going to want to talk about it, want to work on it together.
mm,
So sometimes, if possible, what teachers do is they offer students a choice. So normally, when a project starts, you break your students into working groups, small groups, right? You have maybe imagine Japan and Spain, for example, we're
mm,
working together. So you would have two Japanese and two Spanish students in one working group. Okay. And um, you might then offer them a choice. Say there are different topics that you can work on, and you might offer them a range of topics that you and your partner teacher think are relevant,
mm,
and let them choose one. Okay, that can be very important. because you want your students to be motivated. They're going to invest a lot of time talking to their partners about these things. They have to be interesting, motivating, and relevant to your courses. So I think that's important.
Mm. Okay. I myself don't really have experience in teaching English in the classroom, but I think most of the teachers really aware of the importance of the topic, like which is relevant to students. It kind of connect to the
Mhm.
principle of English teaching as well. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. Uh, so so this is the tricky bit, I think, but when it comes to like assessing the learning outcome or engagement in the telecollaboration project, is there any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is tricky because, I mean, obviously, you as a teacher, you're not going to follow all of your students' meetings,
Mm,
right? Especially nowadays, so many of them happen in video conferencing, like Zoom, like we were doing now or something. It's impossible for a teacher to sit down and to watch the engagement, the participation of all of your students in all of their different working group meetings and things like that. So very often what we do is we ask our students at the end of the project to submit a portfolio, right?
mm,
And the portfolio can have two functions. The first function is for the student to demonstrate that they have participated. So there they might provide, each week a brief summary of what they talked about, when they met, maybe some screenshots of the meetings to show that they really happened. Discussions on what they worked on and things like that. And then also a second part is the reflection, which is like, you want to know what they have tried to learn or what they have
mm,
experienced during this project. And there again, you get them to reflect on what went right, what went wrong, what they learned, what they took away from it,
mm,
things like that, by putting in guiding questions into the portfolio.
mm,
And so that is one way of doing it. Other teachers ask students to write an essay. Others
yeah,
might ask them to make a class presentation where they show what they did and what they learned.
mm,
Okay. But this isn't a traditional, you're not going to be giving students marks for their use of the present perfect, right? In this type
mm,
of project, right? It's their ability to communicate, to negotiate meaning, to overcome problems in the foreign language. It's a much more kind of a comprehensive type of approach to language educate or what language learning should involve.
mm.
So yeah, that's it. So very often I always use portfolios, for example, with my students. And I think that's the fairest way to get a feel of what they did and to see what they learned. Yeah.
So obviously the assessment is based on their content rather than language. So when you assess their portfolio, would you still kind of evaluate their language as well, or you don't
It,
evaluate
it
language at
depends. It
all?
depends. Yeah, it depends on the subject that
Mm,
that I'm teaching, on the level of my students. Some of my students would be language, B1, B2 level language students, and there you could evaluate their portfolio the language in their portfolios.
mm,
But then I also do MA students who are going to become language teachers, and there, at that level, rarely,
right.
there's a language issue, so to speak.
Mm,
But I mean, you can also develop a rubric for the evaluation of the portfolio, and there you can decide, if one of the criteria for assessment is going to be language,
mm,
language proficiency, language accuracy. Yeah.
mm. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think next one will be the last question from me. So if for those who are interested in this topic or tool or method,
Mm.
the teachers, is there any
Yeah.
resource you recommend?
Well, like I mentioned, for high school, for secondary school learners, eTwinning is a very, very big network
Mm,
that run by the European Commission, and that is a good way to get in because it has a platform where there's lots of activities, lots of examples of projects and things like that. At university level, we have Collaboration is an
mm,
organization. Um, Coil Connect is another one, and and then there's also organizations in the United States like the Stevens Initiative that support to provide a lot of materials and support for them. Um, I've put together kind of a list of links to different websites and resources and publications that I can share with you, and you can publish with the. It's a
right.
Google document. It's an online document
Mm,
that you can, if you'd like to share them with the viewers, you can do that as
mm.
well.
Okay. Thank you so much. If you don't mind, I will put that in description.
Great, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all from me. If is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
All I can do is encourage people to do it. If you're a language teacher, I think nowadays I find it's a bit cheeky to say this maybe, but I think if you can at all, you are almost obliged to give your students this experience as a language teacher,
Mm.
because language learning is language use, right? And language use happens in telecollaborative projects. Your students are talking to real people using the language, not to talk to, we work with textbooks, not to listen to videos, but to engage with real people. And that for me has always been what foreign language learning is all about. And this is your chance to do that within the safety of of your classroom, so to speak. Yeah? So yeah, give it a go.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, for sharing your insight with us,
Thank you for having
and
me
for your
in.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Everyone else, thank you for watching this video. I will see you next time. Bye.